Admiral Taman stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the blue planet grow larger on the main screen. His long, scaled fingers tapped against the command console as he smiled with satisfaction. Another primitive world waited to join the Galactic Coalition, whether they wanted to or not. "Sir, we're detecting radio signals from the planet," reported his communications officer. The young alien's voice carried excitement. "Very basic technology. They seem to be broadcasting entertainment programs and news updates." Taman laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Entertainment? How wonderfully primitive. What do they call themselves?" "Humans, sir. They live on the third planet of this star system. Our scans show they haven't even left their own planet yet." The Admiral nodded. This would be easier than he thought. For 3,000 years, the Galactic Coalition had expanded across the stars, bringing order to chaos. Every species they encountered either joined willingly or was forced to submit. These humans would be no different. "Prepare the standard first contact message," Taman ordered. "Inform them that they now belong to the Coalition. They have 24 hours to surrender their planet's governments or face the consequences." His fleet of 12 ships moved closer to Earth. Each vessel was massive, bristling with plasma cannons and protected by energy shields that could stop almost any attack. The humans had nothing that could threaten them. On Earth, Captain Lee Do-hyun received the alien message in the command center of Luna Base. The underground facility on Earth's moon had been humanity's best-kept secret for 50 years. Around him, dozens of technicians worked at their stations, monitoring the approaching alien fleet. "Sir, they want us to surrender," reported Lieutenant Kim. Her voice was steady, but Do-hyun could see the worry in her eyes. "They say we have 1 day." Do-hyun studied the tactical display showing the alien ships, 12 vessels, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. But size wasn't everything. "Send a reply. Tell them we need time to consider their offer." "What are you planning, sir?" asked Commander Hai-jin, his tactical officer. She had been with him since the beginning of the project, back when most people thought building a warship was impossible. "We're going to show them that humans don't surrender easily," Do-hyun replied. "Signal the determination. It's time." Far from Earth, hidden behind the moon, the UES Determination powered up its engines. The ship looked nothing like the sleek alien vessels. It was angular and brutal, built for war rather than beauty. Nuclear reactors hummed to life, feeding power to weapons that the galaxy had never seen before. The Determination was humanity's first interstellar warship, built in secret over decades, while the aliens thought humans were still playing with. Radio waves, Earth's best scientists had been working on technologies that would shock the galaxy. "All systems ready, Captain," reported Engineer Park from the engine room. "Fusion drives are at full power." Do-hyun took his place in the captain's chair. Around him, his crew prepared for humanity's first space battle. They all knew they might not survive, but they also knew that Earth's future depended on what happened next. "Take us out," Do-hyun ordered. The Determination emerged from behind Luna, its engines blazing like a small star. On the alien flagship, alarms began sounding as sensors detected the human ship. "Sir, there's a vessel approaching from their moon," reported the tactical officer. "It's primitive-looking. Single ship, approximately 800 meters long." Admiral Taman studied the human ship on his screen. It looked like something built in a scrapyard compared to his elegant fleet. "1 ship? That's their entire defense force?" "It appears so, sir. They're broadcasting a message." "Put it through." Captain Do-hyun's face appeared on the main screen. He looked calm, almost relaxed. Admiral Tae-min, I presume. I'm Captain Lee Do-hyun of the United Earth Ship Determination. I'm here to discuss your surrender. The bridge fell silent. Several alien officers looked shocked. Admiral Tae-min blinked, slowly, trying to process what he had just heard. My surrender? Tae-min finally asked. Captain, you have one ship. I have 12. Your technology appears to be centuries behind ours. Perhaps you should reconsider your position. Do-hyun smiled. Admiral, you're making the same mistake that every bully makes. You think bigger means better. You think more means stronger. But you've never fought humans before. This is ridiculous, Tae-min snarled. Destroy that ship. Show these primitives. What happens when they refuse the Coalition's generosity? His fleet opened fire. Plasma bolts streaked through space toward the Determination. The human ship didn't even try to dodge. The energy weapon struck its hull and disappeared. The ship's armor absorbed the plasma like it was nothing. Impossible, whispered the tactical officer. Our weapons had no effect. Do-hyun's voice came through the speakers again. Your turn is over, Admiral. Now it's ours. The Determination launched its first attack. Instead of energy weapons, it fired solid projectiles, accelerated to incredible speeds. The kinetic round struck the lead Coalition ship and punched straight through its shields like they weren't there. The alien vessel exploded in a ball of fire. Shields down on ships 4 and 7, reported the tactical officer. They're using some kind of physical projectile. But that was just the beginning. The human ship launched a missile that Tae-min's crew didn't recognize. When it detonated between two Coalition vessels, the nuclear explosion lit up space like a small sun. Both ships were vaporized instantly. Nuclear weapons in space combat? Tae-min couldn't believe what he was seeing. These primitives are using nuclear weapons? The Determination moved through his fleet like death itself. Every weapon the aliens fired was useless against its armor. Every shot the human ship fired destroyed another Coalition vessel. The aliens had never seen anything like it. Commander Hye-jin coordinated the attack from her station. Target their command ships first. Take out their leadership, and the rest will break. The human ship's weapons were perfectly suited for fighting the Coalition fleet. While the aliens relied on energy shields and careful formations, humans had built their ship to punch through any defense with raw force. Within 2 hours, 11 of the 12 Coalition ships were floating wreckage. Only Admiral Tae-min's flagship remained, its engines damaged and weapons offline. Sir, we need to retreat, urged his tactical officer. We can't fight this thing. Tae-min stared at the human ship on his screen. It hung in space like a predator, completely undamaged despite facing an entire fleet. This was impossible. Nothing like this had ever happened in Coalition history. Send a message to Coalition Command, he ordered quietly. Tell them we've encountered something new, something dangerous. The flagship limped away at sublight speed, its hyperdrive too damaged to function. Behind them, the Determination watched them go without pursuit. Captain Do-hyun stood on his bridge, looking at the debris field that had once been a Coalition fleet. His crew cheered around him, but he remained serious. This was just the beginning. Sir, should we pursue? Asked Commander Hye-jin. No, Do-hyun replied. Let him go. Let him tell his superiors what happened here. Let them know that humanity isn't going to be another conquered world. The message was clear. Earth had just announced to the galaxy that humans were not prey. They were predators, and they were ready to fight for their place among the stars. As the alien ship disappeared into the distance, Captain Do-hyun knew that more would come. The Coalition wouldn't accept this defeat easily, but that was fine. With him. Humanity was ready for whatever came next. The age of human expansion had begun, and it had started with a single ship destroying an entire alien fleet. The galaxy would never be the same. The news of Admiral Taemin's defeat spread through Coalition space like wildfire. On the capital world of Nexus Prime, High Chancellor Woo Sung read the report for the 5th time, unable to believe what he was seeing. 11 ships destroyed by a single primitive vessel? He asked his aide. This must be some kind of mistake. The aide, a thin blue-skinned alien named Koltar, shook his head nervously. Sir, we've confirmed the report. Admiral Taemin's flagship has just arrived at Outpost 7. The crew confirms everything. They say the human ship was unlike anything we've ever encountered. Woo Sung stood and walked to the massive window overlooking the Coalition capital. Thousands of years of galactic dominance had made them comfortable, perhaps too comfortable. No species had seriously challenged Coalition authority in over a millennium. Tell me exactly what happened, he demanded. Koltar activated a holographic display showing a rough recreation of the battle. The human ship appeared to use kinetic weapons accelerated to near-light speed. Our energy shields, which stop plasma and laser weapons perfectly, were useless against solid projectiles moving that fast. And the nuclear weapons? That's the most shocking part, sir. They deployed nuclear warheads in space combat. No civilized species has used such primitive, destructive weapons for thousands of years. We never prepared for such an attack. Woo Sung studied the tactical data. The human strategy was simple but devastatingly effective. While Coalition ships relied on complex energy weapons and defensive screens, the humans had used brute force and technologies the aliens considered obsolete. What do we know about this human ship? The Determination, commanded by someone called Lee Do-hyun. Our sensors show it's built using materials we don't recognize. The hull appears to be some kind of layered armor designed to absorb energy weapons. The High Chancellor turned from the window, his expression grim. One ship, Koltar. They destroyed an entire exploration fleet with one ship. If they have more vessels like this... Sir, surely they don't. This was probably their only warship. Most primitive species barely have spaceflight when we find them. But Woo Sung wasn't convinced. Something about this felt different. The human captain's confidence, the way he had spoken to Admiral Taemin, suggested this wasn't a desperate last stand by a primitive world. This felt planned. Meanwhile, on Earth, Captain Do-hyun stood in the war room beneath Luna Base. Around him, Earth's military leaders watched reports coming in from across human space. Their spies and monitoring stations were detecting massive movement in Coalition territory. They're mobilizing a response force, reported Admiral Park Ji-ho, the head of Earth's defense forces. Long-range sensors show at least 50 ships gathering near the Coalition's 4th Fleet base. General Nam Soo-jin, commander of Earth's ground forces, leaned forward. 50 ships. They're not taking any chances this time. Do-hyun nodded grimly. The first battle had been a test, a way to show the galaxy that humanity wouldn't surrender easily. But it had also revealed their hand. The aliens now knew that human technology was dangerous. What's the status of the other ships? Do-hyun asked. Admiral Park activated a holographic display showing the solar system. Red dots marked the positions of 11 other human warships, hidden throughout the system. All vessels report ready for combat. The Retribution is standing by in the asteroid belt. The Vengeance is positioned near Jupiter. All crews are prepared. Commander Haye-Jin, who had been studying intelligence reports, looked up from her datapad. "Sir, we're intercepting Coalition communications. They think the Determination was our only ship. They believe Earth is defended by a single vessel." Do-hyun smiled coldly. "Good. Let them think that. When they arrive, they'll be expecting to face one ship. Instead, they'll find 12. The Coalition fleet that assembled at the 4th Fleet Base was impressive by any standard. 50 warships, from a dozen different species, each one eager to avenge the humiliation at Earth. Fleet Commander Yaktos, a veteran of many Coalition expansion campaigns, had been chosen to lead the assault. "Remember," Yaktos addressed his captains over the fleet communication system, "we are not here to conquer. We are here to destroy. This human ship has made the Coalition look weak. We will reduce their world to ash and scatter the pieces across space." The fleet entered hyperspace, heading for Earth. Yaktos was confident that 50 ships would be more than enough to handle whatever primitive weapons the humans possessed. The Coalition had never lost a battle when they brought overwhelming force to bear. 3 days later, the Coalition Armada dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. Their sensors immediately detected the human ship waiting for them near Mars. The Determination appeared to be alone, just as intelligence had suggested. "There it is," Yaktos said with satisfaction. "The ship that embarrassed Admiral Taemin. Today, we avenge that defeat." His tactical officer studied the readings. "Sir, the ship appears damaged. We're detecting power fluctuations and what might be hull breaches. It looks like they're trying to retreat toward their homeworld." "Perfect. They know they cannot win against our full fleet. Signal all ships to advance. Form attack formation Theta 7. We'll surround them and finish this quickly." The Coalition fleet moved deeper into the solar system, their 50 ships spreading out to encircle the apparently fleeing human vessel. Energy shields glowed around each alien ship, and weapons charged to full power. They would not underestimate human technology again. Captain Do-hyun watched the alien fleet's approach from the bridge of the Determination. His ship wasn't actually damaged. The power fluctuations and false hull breaches were carefully crafted deceptions designed to make the aliens overconfident. "Sir, they're taking the bait," reported his navigation officer. "All 50 ships are moving to surround us." Commander Haye-Jin smiled grimly from her tactical station. "They're spreading themselves thin. Perfect formation for what we have planned." Signal. "The fleet," Do-hyun ordered. "All ships, prepare to decloak on my mark." Throughout the solar system, 11 other human warships powered up their weapons and prepared to drop their stealth systems. The aliens had no idea they were flying into the largest trap in human history. "Sir, we have them surrounded," reported Yaktos's tactical officer. "The human ship is within range of all our weapons." "Excellent. Open fire. Destroy them." The Coalition fleet unleashed a massive barrage of plasma bolts and energy beams at the Determination. The human ship's shields flared as they absorbed the attack, but the vessel remained intact. Just like before, their energy weapons seemed to have little effect. "Impossible," muttered Yaktos. "How are they absorbing that much firepower?" That's when the trap was sprung. "All ships, decloak now," Do-hyun commanded. Suddenly, the Coalition fleet found themselves surrounded by 12 human warships instead of just one. The vessels appeared out of nowhere, their stealth systems dropping to reveal ships bristling with weapons pointed directly at the alien fleet. "Multiple contacts!" screamed the Coalition tactical officer. "Sir, there are 12 human ships. We're surrounded." Captain Myung-ho commanded the Defiance from his position behind the alien fleet. "All weapons, fire at will." The human ships opened up with everything they had. Kinetic rounds traveling at relativistic speeds punched through coalition shields, like they were made of paper. Nuclear warheads detonated between alien vessels, their primitive but devastating power ripping through sophisticated alien hulls. Fleet Commander Yaktos watched in horror as his carefully planned attack turned into a massacre. The humans had known exactly where his ships would be and had positioned themselves for maximum effectiveness. "All ships, retreat," he ordered. "Emergency jump to hyperspace." But the humans had planned for that too. The nuclear explosions created electromagnetic pulses that interfered with hyperdrive systems. Half of the coalition ships found their escape routes blocked by the very space around them. Commander Hyojin coordinated the human attack with cold precision. Each ship had been assigned specific targets, and their crews had trained for this exact scenario. The aliens' superior numbers meant nothing when they were trapped and confused. "Target their command ship," she ordered. "Take out their leadership." The determination focused its fire on Yaktos's flagship. Kinetic rounds slammed into the alien vessel's bridge, while nuclear missiles detonated against its hull. The ship broke apart in a brilliant explosion, taking the coalition fleet commander with it. Within 4 hours, the battle was over. 43 coalition ships had been destroyed and 7 more were captured or disabled. Only 6 vessels managed to escape, limping away at sublight speed with their hyperdrives damaged. Captain Do-hyun stood on his bridge, surveying the wreckage of the coalition fleet. Around him, his crew worked to coordinate rescue operations. For alien survivors, even in victory, humans showed mercy to their defeated enemies. "Sir, we're receiving surrender signals from the remaining ships," reported his communications officer. "Accept their surrender. Treat the survivors well. We want the galaxy to know that humans can be both fierce enemies and honorable victors." Admiral Park's voice came through the communication system from Luna Base. "Congratulations, Captain. You've just won humanity's second victory against the Coalition. How do you feel?" The emergency session on Nexus Prime began with silence. In the Great Assembly Hall, where the Coalition had celebrated countless victories over 3 millennia, the representatives of 67 species sat in stunned quiet. The holographic display at the center of the room showed the same impossible data over and over. 2 coalition fleets destroyed, 59 ships lost, thousands of crew members dead or captured. High Chancellor Wu Sung stood at the podium, his usual confidence, replaced by something the galaxy hadn't seen in 1,000 years: fear. Behind him, the tactical readout of the second battle played in slow motion, showing how 12 human ships had ambushed and destroyed a force 4 times their size. "Honored delegates," Wusung began, his voice carrying through the silent chamber, "we face an unprecedented situation. A previously unknown species has inflicted severe losses on coalition forces. We must decide how to respond." Delegate Vorkes of the Reptilian Systems was the first to speak. "High Chancellor, with respect, this seems like a simple matter. Send a larger fleet, overwhelm them with numbers." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber, but Wu Sung raised his hand for silence. "It's not that simple, Delegate. Our analysts have studied these battles extensively. The humans aren't just using superior numbers or lucky tactics. Their entire approach to warfare is different from anything we've encountered." He activated a detailed breakdown of human weapons technology. "They use kinetic weapons that our shields cannot stop. They employ nuclear weapons in space combat, something we haven't seen in over 2,000 years. Most importantly, they plan their battles with a level of strategic thinking that suggests extensive military experience." Delegate Hicksnar from the Trading Confederation leaned forward. Are you suggesting, High Chancellor, that a primitive species with no galactic experience has somehow developed better military tactics than the Coalition? I'm suggesting, Wusung replied carefully, that these humans may not be as primitive as we assumed. Intelligence reports indicate they've been monitoring our communications for decades. They knew we were coming, and they were ready for us. The chamber erupted in heated discussion. Some delegates demanded immediate, massive retaliation. Others suggested diplomatic contact to understand what humanity wanted. A few, mainly from species that had been conquered by the Coalition, remained suspiciously quiet. On the far edge of Coalition space, word of the human victories was spreading to worlds that had long dreamed of freedom. On Kepler 442b, the underground, resistance movement led by freedom fighter Jal S received the news with barely contained excitement. 2 fleets, Jal S whispered to her followers in their hidden cave base. These humans destroyed 2 Coalition fleets with just 12 ships. Her lieutenant, an older warrior named Tekmon, shook his head in disbelief. It must be exaggerated. No one defeats the Coalition in open battle. The evidence is real, Jal S insisted, showing him intercepted Coalition communications. Look at these reports. Look at the panic in their voices. For the first time in 1,000 years, the Coalition is afraid. Similar conversations were happening on dozens of worlds. Species that had been forcibly integrated into the Coalition began to wonder if rebellion was possible. Underground movements that had been dormant for centuries started making contact with each other, sharing the incredible news of humanity's victories. Back on Earth, the mood in the Luna Base Command Center was both celebratory and tense. Admiral Park Ji-ho studied intelligence reports flowing in from across the galaxy, while Captain Do-hyun reviewed tactical data from the recent battle. The Coalition is mobilizing everything they have, Admiral Park reported. Long-range sensors detect fleet movements from 12 different systems. They're pulling ships from Border Patrol, Planetary Defense, even their core world guardians. General Nam Soo-jin looked up from her own reports. How many ships are we talking about? Best estimate. Over 300 vessels. Maybe as many as 400. It's the largest fleet the Coalition has assembled in over 500 years. Captain Do-hyun set down his data pad and looked at his colleagues. They're planning to end this permanently. No more test fleets or exploratory forces. They want to crush Earth completely. Commander Hye-jin, who had been analyzing Coalition fleet compositions, added her own concerns. Sir, 300 ships is beyond anything we've faced before. Even with our tactical advantages, those numbers could be overwhelming. The room fell silent as everyone contemplated the magnitude of what was coming. Earth's 12 ships had performed brilliantly against smaller forces, but facing the entire military might of a galactic empire was a different challenge entirely. Admiral Park walked to the main tactical display, showing the solar system. How long do we have? Based on their assembly points and travel time, probably 6 months, Do-hyun replied. Maybe 8 if they take time to develop new tactics specifically for fighting us. That's not much time to prepare for a battle that will determine the fate of humanity, General Nam observed, but Admiral Park was smiling. Actually, it might be perfect timing. The others looked at him with confusion. Park activated a new section of the tactical display, showing locations throughout the solar system that had been marked with blue dots. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time I told you about Project Deep Strike. On Nexus Prime, High Chancellor Wusung met privately with his military advisors. The public session had ended with a unanimous vote to assemble the largest fleet in Coalition history, but privately, Wusung had doubts. "Admiral Twin," he addressed his chief military advisor, "what are your honest thoughts about our chances against these humans?" The admiral, a veteran of dozens of campaigns, chose his words carefully. "Sir, we have overwhelming numerical superiority. Even if their weapons are effective, surely 300 ships can defeat 12. "That's not what I asked, Admiral. I asked for your honest assessment." Twin sighed. "Honestly, sir, these humans fight unlike anyone we've ever encountered. They use tactics that seem primitive but are devastatingly effective. They show no fear, even when outnumbered. And most concerning of all, they seem to have been preparing for war with us for a very long time." "What do you mean?" "Sir, look at their ship designs, look at their weapons. Everything about their military technology seems specifically designed to counter our advantages. That doesn't happen by accident. They studied us, learned our weaknesses, and built their entire military around exploiting those weaknesses." Wusung turned to stare out at the Coalition capital, its gleaming towers stretching toward the sky. "You think they're more dangerous than they appear?" "I think, sir, that we may have encountered a species that has been planning for this war longer than we've been aware of their existence. Meanwhile, across Coalition space, the effects of humanity's victories continue to spread. On the mining world of Zerion 7, worker strikes broke out as the population demanded better treatment. On the agricultural planet of New Harvest, local governments began quietly asserting independence from Coalition oversight. The Galactic Stock Exchange, located on the neutral world of Commerce Prime, saw Coalition currency values plummet as traders began to doubt the Empire's stability. Species that had been reliable Coalition allies for centuries started hedging their bets, opening secret diplomatic channels with other powers. But perhaps most importantly, on Earth, humanity was not sitting idle. While the Coalition prepared for war, human scientists, engineers, and military strategists worked around the clock on projects that would shock the galaxy even more than their first victories. Captain Do Hyun stood in an observation deck deep within Luna Base, looking out at what appeared to be empty space. But he knew better. Hidden among the asteroids, disguised as space debris, and tucked away in the shadows of planets, Earth's true strength was taking shape. "Sir," Commander Jin joined him at the observation window, "the Coalition thinks they're bringing overwhelming force to this fight." "Yes, they do," Do Hyun replied. 300 ships sounds impressive, but they still think they're fighting 12 human vessels. Do Hyun smiled grimly. "Let them think that. When they arrive, they're going to learn that." Earth has been preparing for this moment for much longer than they realize. The Coalition was mobilizing for what they believed would be the final battle against humanity. They were gathering ships from across their empire, preparing tactics specifically designed to counter human weapons, and marshaling the largest fleet in their history. What they didn't know was that humanity had been preparing for this fight for decades, and when the Coalition fleet finally arrived at Earth, they would discover that the 12 ships they had fought were just the beginning. The galaxy was about to learn what humans could accomplish when they had time to prepare. The Coalition was coming with 300 ships, convinced that numbers would win the day. They had no idea what was waiting for them in the darkness between the worlds. Deep beneath the surface of Mars, in a facility that didn't exist on any official records, Admiral Park Ji-ho walked through corridors that had been carved from solid rock 50 years ago. The Olympus shipyard was humanity's greatest secret, a construction facility hidden inside the largest mountain in the solar system. "Admiral on deck," called out Chief Engineer Bayek as Park entered the main construction bay. But the Admiral barely heard him. His attention was focused on the massive shape taking form in the center of the cavern. The UES Leviathan was nearly complete. At 2 kilometers long, it dwarfed every other human ship ever built. Its hull bristled with weapons that pushed the boundaries of physics, and its armor was thick enough to withstand anything the Coalition might throw at it. "How long until she's ready?" Park asked. 2 weeks, sir," Engineer Beck replied with pride. "The Leviathan will be the most powerful warship ever built by human hands." Park nodded, but his mind was already on the dozens of other hidden construction sites throughout the solar system. The Coalition thought they were coming to fight 12 ships. They had no idea that humanity had been building in secret for decades. Back on Luna Base, Captain Do-hyun received his new orders with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. He was being promoted to Fleet Admiral and given command of something the Coalition couldn't imagine: the full strength of Earth's military. "Project Deep Strike is officially active," Admiral Park explained in the secure briefing room. "Admiral Do-hyun, you now command not just the 12 ships that have fought so far, but the entire Earth Defense Fleet. Commander Hae-jin, recently promoted to captain, studied the tactical displays with amazement. Sir, there are over 100 ships on this roster. How did we build so many without anyone noticing?" "We've been preparing for this day since we first detected Coalition signals 60 years ago," Park explained. "While they thought we were playing with radio waves, our best scientists were already working on interstellar technology. Every asteroid, mining operation, every deep space research station, every failed mission to the outer planets was actually part of the construction effort. The scale of humanity's deception was staggering. Hidden shipyards operated in the asteroid belt, disguised as mining facilities. Construction platforms worked in the shadows of Jupiter's moons, building vessels that would never appear on any public records. Even the civilian space program had been a cover, with cargo ships secretly transporting military components to secret bases. Captain Sung Min commanded one of these hidden facilities from his base on Europa. The ice-covered moon of Jupiter had been hollowed out over decades, creating a massive underground shipyard that could build 6 vessels simultaneously. "Sir, the last batch of ships is nearly complete," reported his chief engineer. "The indomitable, unstoppable, and inevitable will be ready for deployment within the week." "Good," Sungmin replied. "The Coalition fleet will arrive soon, and we need every ship we can get." But ships weren't the only thing humanity had been building in secret. On Titan, Saturn's largest moon, Dr. Lee Min-ho supervised the completion of humanity's most ambitious project yet. "The planetary defense grid is online," she reported to Earth Command. 47 orbital weapons platforms, each one capable of destroying a Coalition dreadnought with a single shot. The weapons platforms were disguised as scientific satellites, scattered throughout the outer solar system. To alien sensors, they looked like harmless research equipment. In reality, they were the most powerful weapons ever deployed by humanity. On Ceres, the largest asteroid in the belt, Captain Yu-na oversaw the final preparations of her own secret project. The Retribution had been joined by 11 sister ships, all of them hidden among the rocks and debris of the asteroid field. "Sir, long-range sensors are detecting movement in Coalition space," reported her tactical officer. "Looks like they're finally assembling their response fleet." "How many ships?" Yuna asked. "Current count is 230, but more are joining every day. Final estimates suggest over 300 vessels." Yuna smiled grimly. 300 ships. They think that's enough to intimidate us. What the Coalition didn't know was that humanity had learned valuable lessons from studying their previous defeats. Every species the Coalition had conquered had made the same mistake. They had revealed their full strength too early, allowing the aliens to adapt and overwhelm them. Humanity had chosen a different strategy. They revealed only what was necessary, allowing their enemies to underestimate them while building their true strength in secret. Admiral Do-hyun stood in the war room deep beneath Luna Base, studying a tactical display that showed the true extent of Earth's defenses. 147 ships were scattered throughout the solar system, each one more advanced than the vessels that had already shocked the galaxy. Weapons platforms provided additional firepower from fixed positions. Supply bases ensured that human forces could fight for months without returning to Earth. "Sir, we're receiving reports from our deep space monitoring stations," reported Intelligence Officer Kim. "The Coalition fleet has begun moving toward our system. Current count is 312 ships from 43 different species. Time until arrival? Approximately 6 weeks at their current speed." Do-hyun nodded thoughtfully. "Perfect. That gives us time to complete the final preparations." But the Coalition wasn't the only force mobilizing. Throughout their empire, the news of humanity's victories had sparked something that the aliens hadn't seen in centuries: rebellion. On the industrial world of Forge Prime, workers had seized control of several weapons factories. On the agricultural planet of New Eden, local militias had declared independence from Coalition rule. Even on some of the core worlds, protests and strikes were becoming common. The Galactic Coalition, which had ruled through fear and overwhelming force for 3,000 years, was discovering that their invincibility had been more fragile than they realized. High Chancellor Wu Sung received these reports with growing alarm. "How many systems are in open revolt?" 17 so far, sir," reported his aide, "and the number is growing daily. These humans have become a symbol of resistance throughout Coalition space." "Then we must crush them completely," Wu Sung declared. "We cannot allow this rebellion to spread further." But even as the Coalition prepared their massive fleet, human intelligence was gathering detailed information about their plans. The network of monitoring stations that Earth had built throughout the galaxy provided constant updates on alien ship movements and communications. Captain Dong-woo, commanding the stealth ship Phantom from his position near the Coalition staging area, transmitted his latest report to Earth. "Admiral, I'm observing final preparations for their assault fleet. They're bringing everything they have: battleships, carriers, support vessels, even their planetary assault craft. Do they suspect anything about our true strength?" Do-hyun asked. "No, sir. Their communications suggest they still believe they're facing 12 ships. They're confident that overwhelming numbers will win the day. That confidence would be their downfall." While the Coalition assembled the largest fleet in their history, humanity put the finishing touches on a defense network that would shock the galaxy. In the depths of space, human engineering crews made final adjustments to weapons platforms that could strike targets from across the solar system. On hidden bases throughout the asteroid belt, supply ships loaded ammunition and fuel for the coming battle. In secret shipyards, the last of Earth's warships received their final systems checks. The Coalition was coming with 300 ships, convinced that they faced a primitive enemy with limited resources. They had no idea that they were flying into the most sophisticated defense network ever created by human ingenuity. Admiral Do-hyun stood once again at the observation deck, looking out at what appeared to be empty space. But now he could see it all. The hidden ships, the concealed weapons platforms, the supply bases disguised as asteroids. Earth's true strength was finally ready. "Sir," Captain Hai Jin joined him at the window. "All fleet commanders report ready. For combat, we have 147 ships standing by. And the coalition still thinks they're fighting 12? Yes, sir. Our deception has been complete." Du Hyun smiled with satisfaction. "Then let them come. Let them bring their 300 ships and their thousands of years of galactic dominance. When this battle is over, the galaxy will learn that humanity doesn't just fight to survive. We fight to win." The stage was set for the largest space battle in galactic history. The coalition believed they were bringing overwhelming force to crush a primitive enemy. Instead, they were about to discover that Earth had been preparing for this moment longer than they had existed as a spacefaring species. The real war was about to begin. The coalition armada dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system like a metal storm. 317 ships materialized in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming under the distant light of Sol. It was the largest fleet the galaxy had seen in over a millennium, assembled from 43 different species and carrying enough firepower to crack a planet. Fleet Commander Su Jin stood on the bridge of her flagship, the massive dreadnought Iron Will. The veteran of dozens of coalition campaigns studied the tactical displays with satisfaction. After 6 months of careful planning, the moment of revenge had finally arrived. "Sir, we're detecting the human ships," reported her tactical officer. 12 vessels positioned near the 4th planet. They appear to be in defensive formation." Su Jin nodded grimly. "Just as intelligence predicted. They're making their last stand around their homeworld." She opened a channel to all ships in the fleet. "Attention all commanders. We are not here for conquest. We are here for annihilation. These humans have humiliated the coalition twice. Today, that ends forever." The massive fleet began its advance toward the inner solar system, weapons charging and shields at maximum power. Every captain had studied the previous battles, learning from the mistakes that had cost 2 coalition fleets. This time, they would not underestimate human weapons. Admiral Do Hyun watched the approaching armada from the bridge of the Determination. Around him, his crew worked with calm efficiency, their faces showing none of the fear that any rational person should feel when facing such overwhelming odds. "Sir, the coalition fleet is advancing in standard attack formation," reported his navigation officer. "They're maintaining defensive spacing to prevent nuclear weapons from destroying multiple ships." "Good," Do Hyun replied. "They learned from the previous battles. Unfortunately for them, they're still fighting the last war." Captain Hyajin looked up from her tactical station. "Sir, all hidden fleet elements report ready. The trap is set." Throughout the solar system, 135 human warships waited in silent darkness. They were positioned among asteroids, hidden behind moons, disguised as space debris, and cloaked by technology the coalition didn't know existed. Each ship was perfectly positioned to create an unbreakable web of death around the advancing alien fleet. The coalition armada passed Neptune's orbit, their sensors scanning constantly for additional human ships. But Earth's stealth technology was decades ahead of anything the aliens possessed. The hidden fleet remained invisible, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. "Sir, we're now within optimal range of their homeworld," reported Fleet Commander Su Jin's tactical officer. "All ships report weapons ready." "Begin the attack," Su Jin ordered. "Target their 12 ships first. I want them destroyed before we begin planetary bombardment." The coalition fleet opened fire with everything they had. Hundreds of plasma Bolts and energy beams streaked through space toward the human vessels. But the 12 ships of Earth's visible fleet were no longer the primitive vessels the aliens remembered. They had been upgraded with new armor, improved shields, and weapons that even the Coalition had never seen. The Determination absorbed the massive energy barrage and fired back with its new kinetic cannons. Projectiles accelerated to 90%. Of light speed struck the lead Coalition ships, punching through their shields and armor like tissue paper. "Impossible," breathed Su Jin's tactical officer. "Sir, our heaviest weapons are having minimal effect, but their return fire is devastating our forward ships." That's when Captain Myung-ho, commander of the Defiance, gave the signal that would change galactic history forever. "All ships, execute Operation Thunderstrike. Drop stealth fields now." Suddenly, the Coalition fleet found itself surrounded by human warships that appeared out of nowhere. Ships materialized behind asteroids, decloaked near Jupiter's moons, and rose from the dark side of planets. In an instant, the aliens discovered they were not attacking 12 human vessels, but facing a fleet of nearly 150 ships. "Multiple contacts!" screamed the Coalition tactical officer. "Sir, there are ships everywhere. We count over 100 human vessels." Fleet Commander Su Jin stared at her tactical display in horror. Red icons representing human ships surrounded her fleet on all sides. The Coalition Armada, which had approached in perfect attack formation, was now trapped in the center of a carefully planned killing zone. "How is this possible?" she whispered. "Our intelligence said they only had 12 ships." Captain Sungmin, commanding the newly completed Indomitable from his position behind the alien fleet, opened fire with weapons that defied everything the Coalition thought they knew about physics. His ship's antimatter cannons struck 3 Coalition vessels simultaneously, reducing them to expanding clouds of plasma. The battle became a massacre within minutes. Human ships had positioned themselves perfectly to create overlapping fields of fire that gave the aliens nowhere to run. Every time a Coalition ship tried to break free, it found human vessels waiting to destroy it. Commander Park, leading a squadron of stealth frigates, attacked the Coalition supply ships with devastating precision. "Target their fuel tankers first. Without supplies, their larger ships will be helpless." The human attack was perfectly coordinated, each ship playing its part in a symphony of destruction that the Coalition had never experienced. Where the aliens fought as individual vessels trying to maximize their own survival, humans fought as a unified force with a single purpose: complete victory. "Sir, we've lost over 70 ships in the first hour," reported Su Jin's tactical officer, his voice cracking with panic. "The humans are everywhere. They're using tactics we've never seen before." Fleet Commander Su Jin tried to rally her remaining ships. "All vessels, form defensive formation Delta 9. Concentrate fire on their largest ships." But the humans had prepared for that too. Captain Yuna's squadron, hiding among the asteroids, began their own attack run. "All ships, target their command vessels. Cut off their leadership, and the rest will break." The Retribution and her sister ships struck at the heart of the Coalition fleet, their weapons specifically designed to penetrate the heavy armor of alien command ships. Within minutes, 3 Coalition admirals were dead and their flagship vessels destroyed. The aliens' numerical advantage meant nothing when they were surrounded, confused, and facing weapons they couldn't understand. Human ships moved through space with a grace and coordination that seemed impossible, their crews working together like parts of a single organism. "Sir, the humans are using some kind of networked communication system," reported a Coalition intelligence. officer who was desperately trying to understand what was happening. Their ships are sharing targeting data in real time. They're fighting as one entity, not separate vessels. That was exactly right. Humanity had learned from studying social insects on Earth, developing a command structure that allowed individual ships to act as parts of a larger organism. Where coalition ships fought for individual glory, human crews worked together for collective victory. Captain Dongwu led the final phase of the attack, bringing his heavy battleships into position for close-range combat. All ships prepare for knife-fighting range. Show them what human engineering can do. The massive human dreadnoughts closed with the remaining coalition vessels, their armor thick enough to shrug off alien weapons while their guns tore through enemy ships like paper. The battle became a demonstration of everything that made human technology superior: ruggedness, adaptability, and devastating firepower. "Sir, we must retreat," urged Su Jin's surviving officers. "We've lost over 200 ships. The fleet is breaking apart." But there was nowhere to run. Human ships blocked every escape route, their weapons ready to destroy any coalition vessel that tried to flee. The trap was perfect, and the aliens were caught in its center. All coalition ships. "This is Admiral Do Hyun," came a transmission across all frequencies. "You are surrounded and outgunned. Surrender now, and we will treat your survivors with honor. Continue fighting, and we will show you the same mercy you intended to show Earth." Fleet Commander Su Jin looked around her bridge at the faces of her crew. They were the finest warriors in coalition space, veterans of dozens of campaigns, but they had never faced anything like this. "Sir, what are your orders?" asked her tactical officer quietly. Su Jin stared at the tactical display, showing the wreckage of what had once been the most powerful fleet in galactic history. Human ships surrounded the few dozen coalition vessels that remained intact, their weapons trained on alien hulls, but holding their fire. For the first time in 3,000 years of galactic dominance, a coalition fleet commander spoke words that had never been uttered before. "All ships, cease fire. We surrender." The battle of Sol was over. The largest fleet in coalition history had been destroyed by human forces that seemed to appear out of nowhere. Of the 317 ships that had entered the solar system, fewer than 30 survived to surrender. Admiral Do Hyun stood on his bridge, looking out at the wreckage that drifted between the worlds. Around him, his crew worked to coordinate rescue operations for alien survivors, showing the same professionalism. The aftermath of the Battle of Sol sent shockwaves through coalition space that would be felt for generations. On Nexus Prime, High Chancellor Wu Sung stood before an emergency assembly where delegates from across the galaxy demanded answers for the worst military disaster in coalition history. 300 ships, shouted Delegate Kex Ran from the Mining Confederation. "You sent 300 ships against 12 primitives, and only 30 came back. How do you explain this catastrophe?" Wu Sung struggled to maintain his composure. The reports from surviving ship commanders read like science fiction. Human vessels appearing from nowhere, weapons that defied known physics, tactics that seemed impossible for any civilized species to employ. "The humans deceived us," he admitted reluctantly. "Our intelligence was completely wrong. They had over 100 ships hidden throughout their system." "Hidden how?" demanded Delegate Vorkes. "Our sensors are the most advanced in the galaxy." "They used stealth technology we don't understand, positioned ships among asteroids, and disguised weapons platforms as scientific equipment. They had been preparing for this battle for decades, while we believed they were primitives playing with radio waves. The assembly erupted in angry voices. Representatives who had supported the war effort now questioned everything about coalition military doctrine. Some delegates openly suggested that perhaps it was time to negotiate with humanity rather than continue a losing war, but Wu Sung had already made his decision. "I am declaring a state of total war," he announced, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Every ship, every resource, every world in coalition space will be mobilized for the complete destruction of humanity." On Earth, Admiral Do Hyun read intelligence reports about the coalition's response with a mixture of satisfaction and concern. The enemy was becoming desperate, which made them more dangerous but also more predictable. "Sir, our deep space monitoring stations report massive fleet movements throughout coalition space," reported Intelligence Officer Kim. "They're pulling ships from every sector, even their home defense fleets." Captain Hyejin studied the tactical displays with professional interest. "They're abandoning their defensive strategy entirely. Every ship they have is being redirected toward Earth." "How many ships are we talking about?" Do-hyun asked. "Current estimates suggest over 800 vessels, possibly 1,000. It's the largest military mobilization in galactic history." The room fell silent as everyone contemplated the magnitude of what was coming. Even with their technological advantages and superior tactics, facing 1,000 enemy ships would test humanity to its limits. But Admiral Park Ji-ho, who had been quietly studying the reports, began to smile. "Actually, this might be exactly what we need." The others looked at him with confusion. "Sir?" Do-hyun asked. "Think about it. They're pulling every ship from defensive positions throughout their empire. Border worlds are being left undefended. Core systems have minimal protection. They're gambling everything on one massive assault. Which means," Captain Hyejin said, understanding dawning in her voice, "that if we can defeat this fleet, the coalition will have nothing left to defend their territory." "Exactly. They're handing us the opportunity to end this war in one decisive battle. But preparing for such a battle required resources that even Earth's impressive industrial base couldn't provide alone." That's when humanity played another card that the coalition hadn't expected. Throughout coalition space, the rebellions that had started after humanity's first victories were growing stronger. On Kepler 442b, freedom fighter Jal S received an encrypted message that changed everything. "From the United Earth Government," she read to her assembled followers, "we offer alliance to all species fighting for freedom from coalition oppression. Military advisors, weapons technology, and tactical support available to all resistance movements." Her Lieutenant Tekmon could barely believe what he was hearing. "They're offering to help our rebellion?" "More than that," Zales replied, studying the full message. "They're offering to coordinate rebellions across coalition space. Strike at the same time. Force the coalition to fight on 100 fronts simultaneously." Similar messages were being received by resistance movements on dozens of worlds. Humanity had spent decades building not just ships and weapons, but intelligence, networks throughout coalition space. Now those networks were being activated for the largest coordinated rebellion in galactic history. On the industrial world of Forge Prime, rebel leader Haxtor received detailed plans for sabotaging coalition weapons factories. On the agricultural planet of New Eden, resistance fighters got coordinates for hidden supply depots they could capture to arm their forces. But perhaps most importantly, on the neutral trading world of Commerce Prime, human agents made contact with species that had grown tired of coalition domination but had never dared to act openly. Captain Lee Min-jung, operating undercover as a trader, met with representatives from the Independent Merchants Guild in a secure location. "The coalition has ruled through fear for 3,000 years, she told them. But fear only works when people believe you're invincible. Humanity has proven that the coalition can be defeated." Guild leader Thexmos was intrigued but cautious. "What exactly are you proposing?" "When the coalition sends their final fleet to destroy Earth, rebel forces throughout their territory will strike simultaneously. Supply lines will be cut, communication networks disrupted, and key installations captured. The coalition will face the choice of defending their empire or attacking humanity. They can't do both." The plan was audacious in its scope. While the coalition prepared for one massive battle at Earth, humanity was organizing a galaxy-wide revolution that would strike at the heart of their empire. On Earth, the preparations for the coming battle reached a fever pitch. Hidden shipyards worked around the clock to complete new vessels, while weapons platforms throughout the solar system received their final upgrades. Captain Sungmin oversaw the completion of humanity's most ambitious project yet, the Ragnarok, a massive dreadnought that dwarfed even the Leviathan. At 3 kilometers long and armed with weapons that pushed the boundaries of physics, it was designed to be the ultimate expression of human military power. "Sir, the Ragnarok is ready for final systems testing," reported Chief Engineer Bayek. "This ship has enough firepower to take on 50 coalition vessels single-handedly, but even more impressive than individual ships was the coordination between human forces. Unlike the coalition, which relied on rigid hierarchies and species-based divisions, humanity had developed a command structure based on merit and cooperation. Commander Eun-ji, recently promoted to admiral, demonstrated this during a massive training exercise that involved over 200 ships. "All fleet elements, execute formation Delta 7, she ordered. The human ships moved like a school of fish, each vessel responding to commands instantly while maintaining perfect spacing and coordination. The coalition had never seen anything like it because their own forces were divided by species rivalry and political considerations. "Sir, the fleet is responding faster than our best computer models predicted," reported her tactical officer. "It's like they're thinking with one mind." That was exactly the effect humanity had been working toward. Through years of joint training and advanced communication systems, human crews had learned to fight as a unified force rather than individual ships competing for glory. Meanwhile, intelligence reports continued to arrive from across coalition space. The alien empire was mobilizing everything they had for one final assault on Earth, but they were also dealing with growing unrest on dozens of worlds. "Sir, rebellion activity has increased by 300% in the last month," reported Intelligence Officer Kim. "Coalition forces are being forced to divert ships from the main fleet to deal with uprisings." Captain Dong Wu, analyzing the tactical situation, saw the larger pattern emerging. "They're being forced to fight the war we want them to fight. Instead of one concentrated assault, they're dealing with threats from every direction." Admiral Do Hyun stood once again at his observation post, but now the space around Earth was filled with visible activity. Ship construction, weapons testing, and fleet maneuvers created a constant ballet of motion as humanity prepared for the battle that would determine the fate of the galaxy. "Sir?" Captain Haya Jin joined him at the window. "Intelligence reports that the Coalition's final fleet will arrive within 6 weeks. Over 900 ships, including some vessel types we've never seen before." "New ship types?" "Apparently they've been working on designs specifically intended to counter our advantages. Heavier armor against kinetic weapons, improved shields, and some kind of new weapon system our spies haven't been able to identify. Do-hyun nodded thoughtfully. They're adapting. Good. It means they respect us as an enemy. Sir, are you concerned about facing 900 ships? Do-hyun looked out at the bustling activity of Earth's preparations, thinking about the rebellions. Spreading across coalition space, the advanced weapons that human engineers had created, and the unity of purpose that bound humanity together. The coalition's final fleet was a sight that would have terrified any species in galactic history. 937 ships from 68 different worlds, assembled in the largest military formation ever created. The massive armada stretched across space for hundreds of kilometers, its combined firepower capable of reducing entire star systems to ash. Supreme Fleet Marshal Kexvin commanded this ultimate weapon from his flagship, the Galactic Supremacy, a vessel so large it required its own escort fleet just to protect its weapon systems. As the most decorated military leader in coalition history, he had been given unlimited authority to end the human threat once and for all. Marshal, all fleet elements report ready for the final jump, announced his tactical coordinator. Every ship in coalition space has been assembled for this assault. Kexvin studied the tactical displays with satisfaction. Unlike previous commanders, who had underestimated humanity, he had spent months analyzing every detail of human tactics and technology. This fleet carried weapons specifically designed to counter human advantages, armor thick enough to stop kinetic rounds, and tactics developed to prevent the ambushes that had destroyed earlier coalition forces. Begin the final approach, he ordered. Today, we end this rebellion forever. But even as the coalition fleet prepared for hyperspace, reports were flooding in from across their empire. On Forge Prime, rebel forces had seized control of the main weapons manufacturing complex. On the trading hub of Commerce Prime, independent merchants had declared neutrality and were refusing to supply coalition forces. Most shocking of all, 3 entire systems had declared independence from coalition rule. Sir, we're receiving urgent requests for military assistance from 17 different sectors, reported the communications officer. Rebel activity has increased dramatically in the last week. Kexvin dismissed the reports with a wave of his hand. Local security forces can handle minor rebellions. Our mission is to destroy the source of this cancer. Once humanity is eliminated, the other uprisings will collapse. He had no idea that the rebellions were being coordinated by human intelligence networks, timed to coincide with the coalition's final assault on Earth. While the aliens gathered their entire fleet for one massive battle, humanity was implementing a strategy that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. On Earth, Admiral Do-hyun received the final intelligence briefings in the war room beneath Luna Base. The coalition fleet was larger than anything they had ever faced, but humanity was no longer the same species that had first encountered alien visitors. Sir, our latest count shows 937 enemy vessels, reported Intelligence Officer Kim. They're bringing everything from battleships to planetary assault craft. This fleet could crack a planet. Captain Hyejin studied the enemy formation data with professional interest. Sir, they're using a completely different approach this time. Tight formations, overlapping shields, and what appears to be new jamming technology to prevent our coordination systems. They've learned from their defeats, Admiral Park observed. They're not going to let us use our usual tactics. Do-hyun nodded grimly. Good. It means they respect us enough to change their entire military doctrine. Unfortunately for them, we've been changing too. He activated a holographic display that showed not just Earth's defenses, but military assets throughout human space. The Coalition didn't know that humanity had expanded far beyond their home system, establishing bases and shipyards in a dozen other star systems. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to reveal the full extent of Project Exodus. For 50 years, while the Coalition believed humanity was confined to Earth, human colony ships had been spreading throughout the galaxy. Hidden bases in distant systems had been building ships and weapons, creating a military network that spanned hundreds of light years. Captain Sungmin commanded one of these hidden fleets from his base in the Alpha Centauri system. Admiral, the Second Fleet reports ready for deployment. 87 ships standing by for hyperspace jump. Similar reports came in from bases throughout human space. The Third Fleet at Proxima Centauri, the Fourth Fleet at Wolf 359, the Fifth Fleet at Barnard Star. Each one a complete military force that the Coalition had never detected. "Sir," Captain Hyejin said, studying the deployment reports, "if we combine all our hidden fleets with Earth's defenses, we're looking at over 400 ships. Against 900 Coalition vessels," Admiral Park noted. "Still heavily outnumbered." "Numbers aren't everything," Do-hyun replied. "The Coalition is fighting to maintain an empire. We're fighting for the survival of our species and the freedom of the galaxy. There's a difference." That difference was becoming apparent throughout Coalition space as rebellion spread like wildfire. On Kepler 442b, Jales led a coordinated assault on Coalition administrative centers, her forces armed with human weapons and trained in human tactics. "Remember," she told her fighters before the attack, "we're not just fighting for our world. We're fighting for every species that dreams of freedom. The humans have shown us that the Coalition can be defeated." Her assault succeeded beyond her wildest expectations. Coalition security forces, already demoralized by news of military defeats, surrendered or fled rather than face rebels armed with weapons they couldn't understand. Similar victories were being achieved across the galaxy. On the mining world of Zarion 7, workers seized control of the orbital stations that supplied the Coalition war effort. On New Eden, agricultural rebels cut off food supplies to Coalition military bases. The empire that had ruled through fear for 3 millennia was discovering that fear worked both ways. But the most significant rebellion was happening on Commerce Prime, where the Independent Merchants Guild had allied with human agents to disrupt Coalition supply lines. Captain Lee Min-jung coordinated these efforts from her hidden base on the planet's largest moon. "All units, execute Operation Market Crash. Disable every supply convoy heading toward the Coalition staging areas." The merchants, who had grown wealthy under Coalition rule but had never forgotten their independence, turned their knowledge of galactic trade routes against their former masters. Within days, the Coalition fleet found itself cut off from resupply, forced to rely on whatever resources they had brought with them. "Sir, we're receiving reports of supply disruptions throughout the sector," reported Kexvin's logistics coordinator. "Rebel forces have captured or destroyed 60% of our supply convoys." The Supreme Fleet Marshal began to realize that he was fighting more than just one human world. This was a coordinated campaign that threatened the very foundations of Coalition power. But it was too late to change course now. The final assault fleet was already entering hyperspace, committed to a battle that would determine the fate of galactic civilization. On Earth, the final preparations reached their climax. Admiral Do-hyun stood on the bridge of the newly completed Infinity, a ship that represented the pinnacle of human military technology. Around him, his crew prepared for a battle that would be remembered for millennia. "Sir, all fleet elements report ready," announced Captain Hyojin from her position as Fleet Tactical Coordinator. 412 ships standing by for combat. What about our special projects? Commander Yunji smiled grimly. The planetary defense grid is fully operational. 57 weapons platforms positioned throughout the system, each one capable of destroying a coalition dreadnought. And, sir, Project Prometheus is ready for deployment. Project Prometheus was humanity's most closely guarded secret. A weapon. System so advanced that even most human military leaders didn't know it existed. When the coalition fleet arrived, they would face not just ships and conventional weapons, but technology that would redefine what was possible in space warfare. But perhaps the most important preparation was psychological. Throughout human space, billions of people watched the news reports with a mixture of fear and determination. They knew that the largest fleet in galactic history was coming to destroy their civilization, but they also knew that humanity had never backed down from a fight. On the hidden base at Alpha Centauri, Captain Sung-min addressed his crew before the final battle. Today we're not just fighting for Earth. We're fighting for the right of every species to determine its own destiny. The coalition has ruled through force for 3,000 years. Today, we show the galaxy that their time is over. Similar. Speeches were being given on ships throughout human space, but also on rebel worlds across coalition territory. The human example had inspired something that the aliens had thought impossible: a galaxy-wide uprising against their authority. Intelligence Officer Kim provided the final updates on rebel activity. Sir, we now have confirmed uprisings on 47 worlds. Coalition forces are being forced to divert ships from the main fleet to deal with internal security. How many ships? Do-hyun asked. At least 70 vessels, possibly more. The coalition is discovering that maintaining an empire requires more resources than conquering one. Admiral Park studied the tactical situation with growing satisfaction. They're being forced to fight the war on our terms. Instead of one concentrated assault, they're dealing with threats throughout their... The coalition's final armada emerged from hyperspace like a metal avalanche, 937 ships materializing in perfect formation at the edge of Earth's solar system. Supreme Fleet Marshal Kex Vin stood on the bridge of his massive flagship, confident that no force in the galaxy could stand against such overwhelming power. "Sir, we're detecting human ships near the fourth planet," reported his tactical officer. "Initial count shows approximately 50 vessels in defensive formation." Kex Vin smiled with satisfaction. "Only 50 ships? Our intelligence suggested they might have up to 100 vessels. This will be easier than expected." What the coalition didn't know was that humanity had learned the most important lesson of warfare. Always let your enemy underestimate you until it's too late for them to adapt. Admiral Do-hyun watched the alien fleet's approach from the bridge of the Infinity, his expression calm despite facing odds of nearly 20-1. Around him, his crew worked with quiet efficiency, their confidence born from years of preparation for this exact moment. "Sir, the coalition fleet is advancing in standard formation," reported Captain Hyojin. "They're maintaining defensive spacing and appear to be scanning for additional ships." "Good. Let them scan. They won't find what they're not looking for." Hidden throughout the solar system, over 300 human warships waited in perfect concealment. But that was just the beginning of the coalition's surprises. In star systems throughout the galaxy, additional human fleets were preparing to reveal themselves at the perfect moment. The coalition fleet advanced toward Earth with methodical precision, their commanders confident that overwhelming numbers would finally end the human threat. They had studied every previous battle, analyzed every human tactic, and prepared countermeasures for every weapon system the aliens had encountered. "Sir, we're now within optimal firing range," reported Kexvins, weapons coordinator. "All ships report ready for final assault." "Begin the bombardment," Kexvin ordered. "I want those human ships destroyed before we begin planetary assault." The Coalition fleet opened fire with everything they had, 900 ships unleashing a barrage that lit up space like a small star. Energy beams and plasma bolts streaked toward the human fleet in a display of firepower that could have shattered planets. But humanity's defensive technology had evolved far beyond what the aliens imagined possible. The 50 visible human ships absorbed the massive attack with new shield systems that converted energy weapons into power for their own systems. What should have been a devastating bombardment instead made the human fleet stronger. "Impossible," breathed Kexvin's tactical officer. "Sir, their ships are actually gaining power from our attacks. How is that possible?" That's when Admiral Do-hyun gave the signal that would change galactic history forever. "All ships, execute Operation Revelation. Show them what Earth really built." Suddenly, the space around the Coalition fleet erupted with human warships. Ships decloaked from behind asteroids, rose from planetary shadows, and materialized from what had appeared to be empty space. In an instant, the alien fleet discovered they were not facing 50 human vessels, but over 400 ships positioned in a perfect sphere around them. "Multiple contacts everywhere," screamed the Coalition tactical officer. "Sir, we count 412 human ships. How is this possible?" But the revelations were just beginning. As the Coalition fleet struggled to comprehend what they were seeing, hyperspace signatures appeared throughout the solar system. Human fleets from a dozen hidden bases jumped into the battle, their ships appearing in perfectly coordinated formations. Captain Sung Min led the second fleet from Alpha Centauri, 87 fresh ships that had never been detected by Coalition intelligence. Admiral Do-hyun, second fleet reporting for duty, ready to show these aliens what human engineering can accomplish. Similar reports came in from fleets throughout human space. The third fleet from Proxima Centauri, the fourth fleet from Wolf, 359, the fifth fleet from Barnard's Star. Each one a complete military force that the Coalition had never suspected existed. "Sir," Captain Hai-jin reported with barely contained excitement, "final count shows 743 human ships now in the battle area. We outnumber them." Supreme Fleet Marshal Kexvin stared at his tactical displays in complete shock. The primitive species he had come to destroy possessed a fleet nearly as large as his own, with technology that defied everything the Coalition thought they knew about warfare. "How?" he whispered. "How did they build so many ships without us? Knowing?" The answer was decades of careful planning, hidden construction facilities, and the most sophisticated deception campaign in galactic history. While the Coalition believed humanity was confined to a single world, human colony ships had been spreading throughout the galaxy, establishing bases and shipyards that had remained completely invisible to alien sensors. But ships were only part of humanity's revelation. Throughout the solar system, weapons platforms that had been disguised as scientific equipment revealed their true nature. The planetary defense grid came online, 57 massive installations that could destroy capital ships with single shots. Commander Yoon-ji coordinated the defense platforms from her command center on Luna. "All platforms target Coalition. Command ships. Let's cut off their leadership." The platforms fired in perfect synchronization, beams of pure energy reaching across space to strike at the heart of the alien fleet. 3 coalition command ships exploded simultaneously, their destruction visible from Earth itself. "Sir, we've lost Admiral Colness, Admiral Hickstar, and Fleet Coordinator Zexmon," reported Kexvin's communications officer. "The humans have some kind of fixed weapons that can strike anywhere in the system." But even this wasn't the extent of humanity's preparations. Deep in space, hidden among the asteroids, Project Prometheus finally revealed itself. The most advanced weapon system ever created by human science began its deployment. Captain Yuna commanded the secret installation from her base in the asteroid belt. "Admiral, Project Prometheus is ready for activation. Recommend immediate deployment against Coalition Core formation." "Do it," Do-hyun replied. "Show them what happens when you threaten humanity." Space itself seemed to tear open as the Prometheus weapon activated. A directed gravitational field reached out to grab 3 coalition dreadnoughts, crushing them like tin cans before hurling their wreckage into other alien ships. The weapon used the fundamental forces of the universe as ammunition, turning physics itself into a tool of war. "What was that?" Kexvin demanded as he watched his largest ships destroyed by forces that shouldn't exist. "What kind of weapon can manipulate gravity?" His science officer studied the readings with growing terror. "Sir, the humans appear to have weaponized space-time itself. This technology is centuries beyond anything in our database." The Coalition fleet, which had entered the battle confident in their numerical superiority, now found themselves surrounded, outgunned, and facing weapons that operated on principles they couldn't understand. Worse, reports were flooding in from across their empire as rebellions erupted on dozens of worlds. "Sir, urgent message from Nexus Prime," announced the communications officer. 37 systems have declared independence. Rebel forces are attacking coalition installations throughout the Empire. High Chancellor Wu Sung is requesting immediate military assistance. Kexvin realized with growing horror that this wasn't just a battle for Earth. This was a coordinated campaign to destroy the coalition empire itself. While he had brought every available ship to fight humanity, rebel forces throughout the galaxy were tearing his civilization apart. The battle became a demonstration of everything that made humanity unique in the galaxy. While other species fought for conquest or glory, humans fought for survival and freedom. Their crews worked together with a unity that the fractured coalition could never match. Their technology pushed boundaries that alien science considered impossible, and their strategy operated on a scale that encompassed the entire galaxy. Admiral Do-hyun coordinated the human assault with a precision that seemed supernatural to the aliens. Third Fleet, target their supply ships. Fourth Fleet, eliminate their escort vessels. Fifth Fleet, prepare for close engagement with their remaining dreadnoughts. The human fleets moved like a single organism, each ship knowing exactly where it needed to be for maximum effect. Coalition ships found themselves isolated and overwhelmed, their careful formations shattered by attacks from directions they couldn't predict. Captain Myung-ho led the final assault, bringing his heavy battleships into knife-fighting range with the Coalition flagship. "All ships, show them what human courage looks like." The Defiance and her sister ships closed with the galactic supremacy, their weapons pounding the massive alien vessel until its shields failed and its armor cracked. The symbol of Coalition power was reduced to a burning wreck, its crew abandoning ship as their invincible empire crumbled around them. "Sir, we must retreat," urged Kexvin's surviving officers. "The fleet is breaking apart. We've lost over 600 ships." But there was nowhere to run. Human ships controlled every escape route, their weapons ready to destroy any coalition vessel that tried to